Alrighty, so welcome to my neighborhood project. My name is Nikki Covarrubias, and this is for PPH 340, section 1001. Alrighty, so I live in East Las Vegas. I've lived on the east side of town for my entire life, and the area that I specifically live in is Sunrise Manor. My neighborhood runs north to south from Harris Avenue and North Christie Lane to South Christie Lane and Ballinger Drive. In addition, my neighborhood runs specifically from east to west from Fog Street and Stewart to Stewart and Oakford Street. So in Sunrise Manor, our food environment, it's quite shocking. I never actually viewed my neighborhood this way, but we have a very high amount of fast food outlets versus supermarkets and grocery stores. So for supermarkets and grocery stores, there is a total of three within the boundary. Located in my specific neighborhood, we have only one extra a grocery other type of store, which would be the 99-cent store only, and that sells produce. Convenience stores, we have around five. That includes like gas stations that have food, liquor stores that sells food and snacks. They're not the most healthy options. We have specialty food stores, none actually for that. And for fast food outlets, we have around 11 within a 1 mile radius. And for restaurants, we only have about three, and that includes Olive Garden, Applebee's, and an IHOP. And with this, that leaves our retail food environment index at 17.39. So in Now, for healthy eating food efforts in Sunrise Manor, there are really no, in my opinion, efforts to encourage healthy eating. In my neighborhood, it is ran by many fast food chains and only a total of four stores that may offer organic or food options. And even then, those options are very expensive for a low income area, and it's a very small, limited amount. In addition, barriers to encouraging and in placing healthy options, I think, mainly falls on the fact that there is not a lot of new building spaces or empty lots that can be used to add in these options without taking away or demolishing our already limited sources that we have now. So for a design change for this, I've pictured renovating and utilizing our current abandoned infrastructure to bring in other healthy food options and or grocery stores that offer a wide variety of organic and healthy food options that are also inclusive, affordable, and overall just available resource to all people within our community. So as right now on the slide in this picture, we have an abandoned what was a previously a fresh and easy supermarket. This supermarket was very loved by many in our community. Many might know that this business just went bankrupt and they closed all of the fresh easies across Nevada. So this previously before Fresh and Easy was a Rite Aid as well, and those also no longer exist here in Nevada. But now it is just boarded up, tagged on, overran by the homeless, and it's just gated up, and it hasn't been used for many, many years. It got to the point where there was actually a petition going around on Facebook to have this turn into a Trader Joe's. So in our community, it's not that there's not a desire to have these options. It's a matter of we just don't have the um, plannings or infrastructure for someone to come in and create these changes. So there's an entire group called Eastsiders Take Action on Facebook, and they actually created a petition to have this be turned into a Trader Joe's, and unfortunately it did not happen, and this building was bought by somebody else and is now being turned into a swap meet, which is great for in some aspects for our community, but not when many of us were looking for more healthy food options in our area, and that what it's going to be turned into now does not offer that, unfortunately. So Next up is our physical activity environment. Now, there are no parks or walking and hiking trails or any areas that encourage physical activity in my neighborhood. The nearest park is 2 miles away and is a 37 to 45-minute walk. The only options are to either go to a nearby elementary school. Sometimes the gates are locked, sometimes they're unlocked, and children usually use those areas, but it is not really the designated park. It's what is connected to a public school, and it's just if the school allows it to be unlocked, that's when people will go in and play soccer on the field or play games outside, outdoor physical activities. But most and often, it's never really open. Our only other option is to pay for the one gym membership or local gym that we have in our community, and it is actually quite expensive to go to this gym. So, and once again, we live in a very low income area, and to even have access to physical activity that is free and outdoors and allows for fresh air, it doesn't exist unless it's 2 miles away, walking. And for many who do not have cars, that's a pretty long distance to go for just some fresh air and working out to then walk back home. As for supports and barriers, there really are no supports or incentives to really be active within the neighborhood. The only option available are bicycle lanes, which are only accessible on two streets, Stewart and Christie Lane, or walking in on sidewalks within the neighborhood. And those sidewalks happen to be 5 feet um, from left to right. Barriers that I think could hinder construction of these parks or exercise stop and go areas is that there are no extremely large areas to build these places because there is a lot of residential housing, as you can see in the photo. Many of our streets look like this, where it's just the street, a bike lane, sidewalk, and then just empty space that is really not being utilized, and then the walls to the neighborhood. A really cool, I think, idea or design change that could incentivize people to get out and want to exercise is, as you can see in the very top photo, we have our street, the bike lane, sidewalk, dirt area, wall. And this is along Christie Lane in between Charleston and Charleston and Stewart. And this is how much of the residential areas look. There's always this room for nothing, and I think we could utilize this area by putting in public exercise equipment that would encourage like calisthenics, using their own people's own body weight to work out, and also educate the public with signs about how to get active and use the equipment that is in the area. And in addition, these extra strips of land can then be used to install running pads or tracks just for people to go along that specific area or that specific street. Up next is the summary of our neighborhood bikeability. So we do have bike lanes. The bike score is 49. Our type of bike lanes are just plain striped bike lanes. There are no buffers or barriers or different colors that are used in the bike lane to identify for cars and drivers to identify. These are only on residential streets, and these residential areas are between 25 to 35 mile per hour areas. Most of like the major streets such as like Charleston and Nellis, they do not have any bike lanes, which also is not very safe because one, you put bicyclists in the main streets with cars, or you have them on the street with pedestrians, which also puts pedestrians at a risk for getting hurt. Up next, so for support and barriers, the only supports for biking are lanes on the far right of each side of the main residential streets. Like I previously stated, larger commercial areas such as Charleston and Ellis do not have any bike lanes. This forces bikers onto the main street with the cars or onto the sidewalks with walking pedestrians, which put them at risk as well. Barriers that I think hinder the implementation of more bike lanes or even buffered bike lanes is the lack of space on our main roads and the overall cost. That can be quite expensive for a low income area, especially when our area is a no HOA area. Many places such as like Summerland, where people do pay HOA and do have these features, the cost is coming out of their HOA fee that they pay. So I think a major barrier would be the cost in our area. Our neighborhood walkability score is 44 and our transit score is 42. Our neighborhood walkability score is 44 and our transit score is 42. We do have sidewalks everywhere, and they're fairly good sidewalks. They are the average 5 foot here in Las Vegas Valley, and there are no pedestrian buffers, but there is accessible ramps and transit stops present throughout my neighborhood. So supports and barriers. A support is our pre-existing walkable sidewalks do have wheelchair accessibility, as you can see in this photo here. And there is another actual ramp that's up the street a little bit more, so somebody could have more access to where the grocery store is. There is public transportation buses and bus stops with shade or separate bus lanes. But a barrier that I think would be restrictive on bettering our streets is the cost and crime rate. I know that sometimes many parts of the city does not want to put the cost where crime happens to be very high. Here on the east side, we are considered what is the most violent area of Las Vegas due to the types of crimes that occur here and the frequency of these crimes. So I've always lived here my entire life, and I've never really, I felt pretty safe. I've never not felt safe here to walk on the sidewalks and street, but I lived here my whole life. I'm sure somebody who lives somewhere else and comes here might feel it differently. But because of this, I also think that is a factor in why many times there is no efforts being placed to make our area a little bit better and safer for our health on our side of town because of these two factors, the cost of it all and the crime. A physical change or implementation that I think we could do here as well. It takes a long walk to get to places here and in our neighborhood. There are bus stops throughout, and many of these bus stops do not have shade. So this is a bus stop actually a couple of minutes away from my house. It's a very short walk, but there is no shade. There is no bench. There is no nothing. There is simply just a bus stop sign, and that is it. And I very often, every day, I see people there waiting for this bus stop, and they're especially in this Las Vegas heat. So I think implementing more trees and shade over these bus stations with seats in these residential areas will, one, get more people more likely to use these areas, and two, give them the proper, safe, overall physical change that they would need to use these areas. So all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. I do truly love living on my side of town. I've lived here my entire life, and I hope you guys were able to gain some insight into Eastside Las Vegas, especially Sunrise Manor area. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.